And just to welcome you, Jolie, to our merry band of earth energy enthusiasts. Um, we're so grateful to have you here and just to share your story with us. You are such a creative person. You've traveled in a way only a few of us have the chance, the opportunity, or the impetus to do. And a pilgrim's path is, let's say, not always the smoothest. It can be rutted or it can be challenging, and but it can also be uplifting and illuminating. And so, with your passion about the historical reenactment, the performing arts, just pure creativity as celebration of life, as well as your connection with the songs the land sings through us to us, and walking these amazing ancestral energy lines. I hand over to you and welcome again. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining us. I'm so excited to hear your story.
Thank you. It's a real honor and a privilege to be here. And um, I feel like I want to say, first of all, that it's quite nerve-wracking to come before, what feel like wise elders and people that know so much about this world, because I am a bit of an everyman who sort of stumbled into the world of energy lines and earth energies, and I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I'd heard of ley lines, but that was as far as my knowledge had reached before I set off on my first pilgrimage. And so, yeah, if I'm ever using terminology or anything that's clunky, I apologise. And I'm just going to share my story with you. But yeah, I'm someone who sort of segued into this by accident slightly. um, but then have met so many extraordinary people because of it, and many of the people that are on this call who've taught me so much and guided me and taken me on amazing adventures. So a lot of the knowledge that I now have has come from key people who are on the screen now. So that's really wonderful. So I'm going to share, I've got a slideshow. So I'll pull that up first of all. So yeah, walking with autumn, pilgrimages across Albion. I've always walked in autumn, and that's partly because I think it just was when I physically could do it the first time I did it. But then it's proven to be, I think, the best time of year to do a long walk, because the earth is feeding you with its abundance. The earth is warm, the floor is warm, and it's just that incredible crossover liminal space. And you get to watch it happen. So I set off in the end of August and it's hot and it's sunny, and I finish at the start of November, and then I get to have winter and I get to mulch and really digest everything that I've learned from the walk. So walking with autumn is my joy. I love walking with the season of autumn. And it began with the XR Brighton to London Earth March. So when we went and shut down London, the first time that happened, which was 2019, no, 16, I think it was 2016, which was actually in spring, that was in April. We walked to London, and it was all organised by XR, and we stayed in churches along the way. But it was along a line called the Meridian line. But I was looking for it yesterday and I couldn't actually find it. So that'd be interesting to hear if you know about it afterwards. But it was a line running from Brighton to London. And we walked through Forest Row, and it was just mind blowing for me that we were able to get from Brighton all the way to Greenwich, avoiding urban landscapes. And I hadn't quite realised that that was possible before. I'd lived in Brighton for 20 years, I'd worked in theatre. My discipline is fooling. So I've trained with Jonathan Kay for since so 27 years now, since the millennium. And fooling is a spiritual practice. It's theatre, but it's theatre as a spiritual practice. So it's about you opening yourself up to being vulnerable and showing your kind of inner world, warts and all, so that the audience feel comfortable with doing the same, so that we're able to share the infinite part of ourselves with each other. And when that happens, it's almost like a shamanic initiation where suddenly like physics goes out the window and we can break all the rules. And that's what's so fun about the archetype of the fool, is that you're sitting in the king's throne and you're breaking the hierarchy and playing with the structures that are in place. And so my discipline has come from that, and I've done lots of weird and wonderful things in theatre for many years. And so when I was walking the pilgrimage, I was walking with some people that I knew from that world, and we stayed in churches, which was wonderful, and got all the way to London, and then closed down London, and then was part of the kind of performing element of some of the stuff that was going on in London when we got there, clowning and fooling. Absolutely gobsmacked by the fact that we could walk all that way. And so then I had a conversation with a friend of mine. Oh, no, ignore that slide for a second. I had a conversation with a friend of mine about the possibility of doing a walk together. And she was someone who I'd done fooling with for many years. And we'd actually ended up falling out with each other. And she'd been my enemy. But part of the work with the fool is that you work in a circle, and you're always watching everyone kind of muddling through their thing and trying to like dismantle their ego and open up. And you sit there and you're like, oh yeah, you need to do that, you need to do that, you need to do that. But when it comes to you, it just becomes white noise and you can't hear what's being said. And then after a while, you realize that what you think everyone else needs to hear is actually what you need to hear, and you can only hear it when it's being said to them and not to you, and it's you translating it, it's all coming from you, and that you need to bring that all back to yourself. And so even when there was someone that has the kind of mask of enemy, they're still you, that we are all one, and that you're putting that mask on that person. And so in any circle, the circle would change, and we did it. I mean, I was working with him for 7 years on tour, on the road, and we would move around the UK and Europe doing these fooling workshops. And sometimes people would come and go, but there was always a bad fairy. There was always someone that was a bad fairy. And that was really useful to realize, because it was like, okay, there's always a mask of a bad fairy. It doesn't actually matter about the human beings in the circle. There'll always be someone who's your friend. There'll be someone you fancy. There'll be someone who's a bad fairy. And that just will keep. So then you take that back to yourself, and that becomes your inner sort of repertory company, and you learn to perform them. So although I had this woman in the company who'd been my enemy, who was my enemy, it was a bit tongue in cheek, and she was also someone that I knew so deeply, like she was like a sister, and we loved each other deeply, but we had a big falling out for some reason many years ago, and we'd come back into each other's lives. Just the universe had sort of brought us back together again. And both of us were like, well, that's ready then for us to heal and be friends again. And so we were going to walk a pilgrimage, and we wanted to walk a long one. And we looked on the Pilgrimage Trust website for a route to walk. And the one that we found was the Michael and Mary line pilgrimage route. And it just said, oh, this one's, 8 weeks long, 500 miles, is along a ley line. And that was all I knew. That was the literally the reason we picked it, was just because it was 8 weeks, and we thought it was interesting because of the route that it walked. But this slide here is the sisterhood tour. So before I set off on the pilgrimage with my enemy, I'd written a play, and this was off the back of so I'd met a shaman, in a Colombian shaman, in the early 2000s, because a friend of mine had been to South America and had drunk ayahuasca, and was blown away by how powerful a medicine it was. And I was going through some stuff in my early 20s where I was getting quite ill, and I was like psychologically making myself quite ill. And he said, I'm going to pay for you to go to this psychoactivity conference in Holland and try ayahuasca, see if it helps you. And he was making a documentary, so he was willing to pay for it. So I went, and it was profound. And I met this incredible shaman there who just instantly, I was like, you're a fool. And I could feel that he was a fool, even though we couldn't speak the same language. And every time we looked at each other, we just burst out laughing. And he did this ceremony for me, and it did completely heal me, and I got better. And 15 years later, out of nowhere, he was coming back to Holland and offered for me to come and do a ceremony again. So I was like, okay. And it was interesting because this time I didn't have any need or want from it. I was just going just to experience it, and because I'd been invited. And I got there, and he had this big red and yellow big top tent, and it was as if it was a circus, and it had him on the front with a big red nose. And went inside, and it was like we were in this. It was just like, this is my church. It was this incredible circus performance space, but with everyone on these mats. And he had some apprentices, and just it was an incredible night. And the first night was just this cacophony of creativity with people singing and dancing and all this performance, and it was amazing. And then the second night, he devoted to the divine feminine. And it was the first time I'd heard that. And it was around 2016 as well. And I think, we're very used to hearing that now, but it was the first time that I'd heard someone say the divine feminine, which is the feminine in all of us, and that, all women here are an aspect of it, and that there's feminine within all of us. And we are worshipping that this evening. And no one did anything to us, but the intention was that the feminine was being worshipped. And it was the most extraordinary night I've ever had. I mean, being worshipped is quite a lovely experience. And it just, all of the women had different experiences, but we had a group vision where at one point he sang into the back of his drum, and we saw a gold light come down into the tent and then hit all of us. And we all then had something happen to us. I atomized and sort of turned into this queen bee thing. And it was just a completely different atmosphere evening to the night before. It was so gentle and um but very sexual. It was very nice. It was just a really like, oh, this is what nature is. This is what Mother Nature is, and the land. And it was beautiful. And the next morning I woke up and I knew that I had to write a play called Sisterhood, and that I wanted to write it with the woman who'd been my mentor, who was 20 years older than me, and a woman I'd been mentor to, who was 20 years younger than me. And we got together, these three women, and we created a play called Sisterhood. And it was about three women who were locked in a church, and it was the 16th century, and we were going to face our trial for witchcraft in the morning, and it was about us getting each other through the night. So a 20-year-old, a 40-year-old, and a 60-year-old. And we did the play, and we took it to Edinburgh, and it didn't do very well. And I had like this moment where I was like, why have you made me bring a show to Edinburgh? I don't understand what's going on, like, to the goddess and the universe. And I did a card reading, and the card reading was basically like, what, you think that was it? I mean, it wasn't about going to Edinburgh. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Okay. And so then I was like, what do we do with this play? And I then looked at taking it to all the places where Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, had tortured and executed witches, which was in East Anglia, which is where I'm from. And it was only when I was booking the tour that I realised Braintree, where I'm from, was literally the middle of the web of where he'd been, and all the things that he'd done. And so we booked the tour, and I booked it so that we were in the run up to Samhain, and Samhain happened to have a full moon on it that year. And I booked it so that we were in his birthplace, where the witch hunt began, in Manningtree, where he pulled his neighbour out of the pub by her hair, and through her being tortured and accusing two other women of being witches, it caused the witch craze to happen in East Anglia. And he was responsible for killing 70% of the witches in England. And he died at 27 from what was it? Malaria. So yeah, he was very young. He was a serial killer. He had no legal right to be doing what he was doing. He just was getting away with it because the Civil War was happening and people were distracted. And so we took this tour to the places where he'd been, and it was the first time I noticed that the land and nature gets involved if you invite her to. And so the first two performances were thunder and lightning and like massive storms. And in the run up to it, because I was like, what are we trying to say to Matthew Hopkins? My friend had this amazing tarot deck, and we pulled a card to just see what the cards were saying. And it was the Wheel of Fortune. And within this particular deck, the wheel had women in between each of the spokes. And the women at the bottom were like dark blue, long black hair, and just looked in despair. And they looked like they'd been accused of witchcraft, which was exactly what was happening in the play. And then the women at the top were all bright and blonde and had their hands in the air and were like in their power. And it just made me think, well, it means this too shall pass. And it was just at the moment that Trump and Boris Johnson had just got in, and it was like, okay, like whatever's going on, this too shall pass. This isn't forever. And so I said, we're forgiving and forgetting Matthew Hopkins. And as soon as I said it, this crack of thunder went off and the whole room lit up with lightning. And it was like, oh my God. And then we got to his birthplace and we did the performance there. And the sky, we did the performance and then we did a healing ceremony, and the sky cleared and the full moon came out and shone down on the 3 trees that were planted for the 3 women who were hung. And just it just felt like something cleared. And then the next day there was a rainbow over our venue, and then from then on it was sunny. And so as I was going to each place and we were doing the performances, we told this story and how, nature and the weather had changed as we'd done this tour. And so that's when I was like, that's interesting. I just observed that that happened. So then, yeah, the pilgrimage that I was walking with my friend, we had it all planned and we knew each other extremely well, as I was saying, and we knew each other's archetypes. So she jokes that my archetype is Bao Bao, the goddess that's basically a vagina on legs. I'm a bit of a carry-on kind of character, sort of working class strumpet archetype, whereas her archetype is Eris, the goddess of discord. And in true Eris fashion, literally months before we were due to set off, she got a booking for a well-paid job and couldn't go. And so I had everything planned. I'd done, done all the working, got myself fit, done working out, had all the kit, and also like to get that long off work, it's actually really difficult to carve out 8 weeks of your life. So I was just like, well, I'm going to go anyway. And then the pandemic happened. And during the pandemic, my best friend Lee, who's the lovely boy of the crown, died really tragically. And none of us, all those people in that picture, we couldn't touch each other. We couldn't go near each other. We couldn't go to his funeral. And so suddenly my flat felt like a prison cell. And when the lockdown lifted and it was coming up to August, September, and I was able to go do the pilgrimage, I was just like, I have to go. There's no question about it now. So that kind of gave me the courage to go on my own because I was so desperate to get out into nature. So walked on my own. So 500 miles on my own, setting off from Cairnley, walking to Hopton-on-Sea. And this was in 2020. And I set off and I'd lived in Brighton for 20 years. I'd worked in theatre for 20 years. I'd been married for 13 years. And then in the first week, my ex-husband split up with me, which, it was sort of on the cards a bit, but it was a shock. I didn't expect it to happen. And so I didn't have my keys with me. So I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. I said, I'm going to come home. He said, I'm not going to let you in. You just keep walking, like finish your pilgrimage. And I was like, okay. And I'd done a tarot reading with this woman in the winter, like just while the pandemic was happening. I'd done this reading with this woman online. And she'd said, there's something happening. There's something big that's happening that you're about to do that you must finish. And so even though there was many points where I was like, I just need to stop doing this and this is crazy and what am I doing? There was also this part of me that was like, I have been told that I should finish it and I need to keep going. So I did and walked the 500 miles from Cairnley to Hopton-on-Sea. And as I was walking, the lines, so I didn't know anything about them. I met Stuart at the Hurlers, and we came in exactly. I was with two friends in the first week, and we arrived and we came in on the Mary line. So we walked straight in on the Mary line and stopped in the circle, just where she entered, which he pointed out to us. And then he had his dowsing rods with him, and he showed me how to dowse. So that was the first time I'd been asked what's yes, what's no. And then we followed the line, and I had to go where's the line, and they showed me, and it was right. And then he showed us the flower that's in front of the central point where there's a flower, and it was how many petals. And so we found out how many petals were there that day. And I lay down and just could feel like my stomach just was going crazy from feeling the energy of these energy lines moving through me. And I so I was with a man and a woman who were two friends that were with me, and they were with me for the first 10 days and then they left. And so by Brent tour, they'd gone. But what was weird was I suddenly was like, but I still have a man and a woman with me. That's what it felt like. So I kept, when I met people, I'd still say, oh, we're doing this or we're doing that. And they were like, are you with other people? And I was like, oh, no. Well, I was, but I sort of still am. And I just sort of had these masculine and feminine entities still with me. And the Mary line especially, I picked up on her first. And the only way I can describe it is that I was like, it was almost like an Instagram filter, or just things were more twinkly. Things looked more beautiful and more twinkly, and there was a safety kind of ease feeling, and then more synchronicities and just like really special experiences kept happening. And then when I got to Glastonbury, that's when I noticed the difference between the two energies. So, sitting in Chalice Wells Gardens, I was sat on the edge of this bench in the Arthur. There's a square that's the Arthur Square, and there's a waterfall in it. And I was feeling this really powerful, fast cascade of energy, and it felt like I was underneath the waterfall. And I was like, oh yeah, this is like pure action. It's pure movement and pure action. And then I was like, well, I'll go over to the well, which I think I already knew that the Mary line would run through the well. And I was like, so I'll go see if that's what it feels like there as well. And then when I got there, it felt like absolute stillness, but really potent stillness, as if like a lioness watching her cubs play. So she's like, she's still, but it's fully held. And so then I had this sense of the Michael line is a hand on your back saying, you've got this. And a Mary line is the hand on your heart saying, I've got you. And I just felt so held and protected by both of them. I felt like they were fully looking after me. And I felt really safe about the fact that I was on my own walking across the Lamb. And then when I got to Avebury, that's when I had a really crazy experience where I walked around the full ceremonial route, going around all of the sacred sites, a 5 mile walk. This was all from Richard Dealer's guidebooks. So that was also the reason why I walked from Kenilworth to Hopton on Sea and not the other direction, which I kind of felt like I should go the other direction because that's the way the sun travels. I'm from East Anglia, but also it's like our ancestors would have come in and gone down. So everything about it felt like I should go that way. But we'd gone the other way. And then it was staying with Alan and Joe, who are on this call, that I met Richard Dealer. And he was like, oh, I said to him, why did you do it the other way? And he goes, oh, it's just because I live in the West Country. And I was like, oh, I thought there was going to be some like profound reason, but it was just because he lives down there. So he'd got as far as Avebury in his guidebooks. And then after Avebury, I was going to have to make it up. But, I'd already done a big chunk by then. So I felt a bit more confident by that point. But we did the 5 mile route. And it just it felt like when I kind of plopped out the end of the 5 mile route and realized that it had become so noisy. Like it just felt like there had been many other beings with me, and that there'd been just this cacophony of noise, like energetically, but it definitely felt like the ancestors and spirit and like a whole host of stuff had been there with me, and that we'd kind of just gone round in some whirlwind and then come out the other end. And I feel like I jumped a timeline. I feel like I shifted a different timeline because I had asthma. I was scared of heights. I lived in Brighton. I was working in theatre. I was married to someone else. And now I don't have asthma. I'm not scared of heights. I live in Sark. I have a different husband and I'm a barmaid. So everything completely changed. And I was just like, it feels like a different timeline. And then the other thing is the next time I went to Glastonbury tour, the path, because there's the front path that goes up to the tour, the back path was in a different place to where it had been before. So in my reality, it used to be along the side of the bushes on the right hand side, and now it's more in the middle of the field. So I was just like, okay, well, someone moved the path. So I've got a different landmark in this reality as well. So that journey, while I was walking, I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to go back and live with my mum in Essex, which I left home at 18 and never went back to Essex for about 6 or 7 years. Had no desire to go back to Essex at all. I now love it, having walked there along the pilgrimage route, because you come from this wild, amazing landscape of Cornwall. And then you go through Devon, which is stunning, and the Dartmoor. And then you go through the Somerset Levels, which is just so sacred. And then you're going through Glastonbury, walking to Avebury, then Dragon Hill. And then it's the Ridgeway. And then you get to East Anglia, and it just like thickens with humanity, and it's like you can hear babies being born, and you can hear soldiers fighting, and it's just the noise of humanity grows, but the deep history of it. And I'm from there, and some of my family have been there a long, long time. And so I've got Trivavanti in me and I've got Iceni in me. And I could feel it as I got there. So now I have a love for that area that I didn't have previous to the first pilgrimage. And yeah, I felt it even more this one, but I'll get onto that later. But I was walking towards Essex thinking I was going to have to move back there, which I didn't want to do. And my friend who I know from a Tudor reenactment, which I shall have some slides for, she said, well, there's houses that need house sitting in Sark because people are stuck all over the world, not being able to get back to their houses from the lockdown. So people need people to come and house sit because no one's got keys in Sark because all of the houses were just unlocked. And so she said, "Do you want to come and house sit?" So I was like, "Absolutely." So I literally finished the pilgrimage, went home, packed up my life, moved to Sark, and I've lived here ever since and met my new husband and yeah, joined the government and absolutely love living here. It's a completely different reality to the madness that's going on in the world. So it feels like it was a gift from the land. It felt like I had this beautiful connection with the lands that was it felt like I gave some kind of massage or intention or love to the lands. And someone on the Earth Energies Facebook group that Stuart runs said something. They were somewhere else along the lines, and they said, "Oh, the lines are enjoying the attention," and I just loved the feeling or the thought that that was happening. That my walking the lines was somehow affecting them, and that that was having an impact on them, and and then came away with this whole new reality that was nothing like, I mean, it was beyond my dreams, beyond my wildest dreams. I can't drive. I wanted to live in the countryside, but because I'd lived in Brighton for so long, I'd never needed to learn to drive. So living in the countryside had always been a bit something that I'd have to do after I learned to drive. I live somewhere with no cars. Like I literally can't drive here. So it's just, I mean, I would have never have dreamt in a million years that I could have ended up on an island where I don't need, if I learned to drive here, it would be a tractor, which would be quite fun. So I've written down this adventure in a book called Walking with Autumn, which I'm trying to get published. And if anyone knows a publisher or anyone that might be able to help me with that, then I would be very interested in hearing about it. I'm just going to read you this small extract because I've written it so that it's also got the inner world elements in there, that I've given voice to the lines and the ancestors and the atmosphere of the place and the hedgerow plants. So this is Elsa's Well, which is down in Cornwall. It's the first sacred well once you come away from Colonel Bowl inland. So Elsa's Well lurked low in the shadows, unassuming, almost hidden, nestled beneath the thicket and submerged in moss. It was a modest little waterhole sitting on the Mary energy line, with a small opening marked out by ancient granite stones. Ribbons of prayers and offerings hung from the surrounding trees. The guidebook said the well was on land owned by a man named Trevor Stewart, who'd written a book on the evidence he'd compiled showing that the site had been an ancient place of goddess worship. The air felt charged and the waters were fresh and clear. I pulled out my trusty piece of string and cut it up into bits, giving a piece to each of my comrades. Ever since reading Terry Pratchett's Tiffany Aching stories, I'd always carried a piece of string in my bum bag. If that makes no sense to you, then you have some reading to do. We each took a piece and made a prayer, tying our string to a nearby branch. I prayed for protection on my journey and asked for a blessing from the goddess. The light in the leafy alcove twinkled with ancient mystery. I knelt at the water's edge. It commanded a reverential stillness. My fingers drifted through the mottled mirrored image of the gunnera leaves and blackthorn needles, rippling my reflection out across the hedgerow, drifting off into the land. Please keep me safe, I whispered to the water. A few days from now, I would be walking through Devon on my own, my friends having departed, and I had to admit that part of me was terrified. With my fingers in the freezing waters of the holy spring, I felt as if the ancestors were crowding in and the light was thickening in their presence. I'm so proud of you, whispered her nanny in her ear. I'm in awe of the brave woman you've become. She's always been a little madam, piped up her great nanny Pilgrim, who meant this with pride. Her eyes always flashed at me whenever I told her off. Just make sure you take care of yourself and don't get into any blasted trouble, worried her granddad, who knew well the minds of men and feared for her safety. She will be safe, soothed a voice that floated through their collective souls like white satin. Lady of the Spring stepped forward and whispered in her ear, "We've got you, little one." So that's what I've done throughout the book. I've told my story, but I've added in the ghosts and the hedgerow and the different entities that I met. So I finished that walk, and at the end of the walk, Richard Dealer very kindly reached out to some pilgrims who'd also walked the Michael and Mary route a while ago, and they wrote the book something Albion, walking with Albion or something. And it was Graham Joyce was one of them, who some of you may know. And Graham Joyce came and met me because Richard had reached out to him, and he bought me a copy of the book and told me about how it had been a group of 20 odd of them. They'd ended up being, I think there was like 90 of them who actually were there for the last bit, walking into Hopton on Sea. Um, and I had been talking to a friend of mine, so she came and met me in East Anglia as we were doing the last bit of the walk, who was very much involved with COP, and every year would go and be one of the delegates at COP. And I had been saying how when I was walking, it felt like a form of performance where the audience were the people that I was meeting, and the story was the amazing interactions that I was having, because people are just so incredible. Like, everyone I met looked after me, took care of me, and they were from all walks of life. Everyone was batshit. Sorry, excuse my language. Everyone was mad. They all lived in their own reality that like bore very little resemblance to any of the other realities. And I was just like, wow, how we even managed to cobble a shared reality together is beyond me, but we're doing really well considering. And people are kind. People are really, really kind. And the generosity just every day, all day, every day was miracle, miracle, miracle. And so I was telling that to people, and we have so much doom and despair. And it was straight after Brexit, and people were so negative. And I was just like, people are nice, people are nice. And it was really lovely to share that story and to be able to share the anecdotes of what had happened. And so it became like a form of performance. And also, being a stranger passing through, I became like a walking confessional where people kept sharing their stuff with me. Like, people would really, tell me big things. So she said, "Oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing to make it into a performance and bring it to COP?" So when I met Graham, I was like, I am thinking of taking a group of people to COP 26 and doing a performance. And he said, well, I'll help you and I'll let you know how I did it. And so he gave me advice on how to physically manage it and doing the logistics of it. And so reached out to the public and was like, who wants to come with me? And ended up with 30 people saying yes. So suddenly I'd gone from walking on my own once to leading 30 people across the country. On the first night, I just burst into tears. I was like, please, no one die. Like, so yeah, everyone look after yourselves. So we set off from London, because when I put the shout out, I just said, who wants to walk from London to Glasgow? But then as I was researching that route, I somehow found out about the Spine of Albion. I think someone said that David Icke's son was planning to walk it, and I was like, "Oh, interesting." So I went and had a look at the Spine of Albion, found the book, reached out to Caroline and Gary, and they gave me some information and helped me form the meet people along the way. And I also ended up somehow, Ben Christie, who runs the Medicine Festival, had found out about it somehow as well and reached out to me and said, well, we were planning on doing something, but as soon as you're already doing something, we'll support you. And so the Wisdom Keepers stepped in and helped out as well. So what we ended up doing is, and it actually ended up being more important than taking a performance to COP, because obviously taking a performance to COP isn't going to change the world as much as I would love it to. It's a lovely thing to do, but it's, got a limit to what it's actually capable of. What ended up being more important to me, and I think most of the pilgrims, was walking the Spine of Albion as an intentional massage, and to do ceremonies on what we felt were each of the chakra points along the line. So we started with the root chakra in the Isle of Wight, and we met. One of my favourite sentences that anyone's ever said to me was Ben Christie saying, "Do you want me to activate the druids in the Isle of Wight?" And I was like, "Yes, activate the druids in the Isle of Wight, brilliant." And so he did, and I met with an amazing group of druids down in the Isle of Wight, and we did a ceremony in the Devil's Punch Bowl. Went into the Dragon's Nostril caves. set our intentions and then set off and walked up to Winchester, then got the train over to London, picked everyone up in London, walked along the Michael and Mary line back to Dragon Hill, and then we went up the Spine of Albion to Edinburgh. Then we cut across to Glasgow, and then was in. I mean, it was phenomenal. This like is so kind of mystical what happened on this pilgrimage in a way that's hilarious because we did this route again coming back down a couple of years later, and places that we walked on this particular walk where there was a massive storm, it seemed like we were so in the middle of nowhere. And then when we walked back down it, we were like, oh, there's an A road just there. Like, oh, and there's houses just there, but we couldn't see them because the weather was so bad and it was so rainy. So it just felt like we really entered into this like crazy, absolutely in the middle of nowhere, unbelievable, yeah, like otherworldly space when we did this particular pilgrimage. Um, yeah, and 30, there was four men, the rest were women, and every one of them was a leader. So it's quite interesting, like guiding that many leaders up the hill. So yeah, I had to literally just go, you're all in charge of all of your aspects of your archetype. So you do you, and you're in charge of all of that bit that is you. And yeah, together we did it, and no one fell out. It was absolutely brilliant. We're like a family. Our WhatsApp, it's 5 years later, 4 years later, and our WhatsApp's still absolutely lively, which doesn't normally happen. You know, we're still completely in touch with each other, still have meetups and yeah, reunions. So we walked across the land, walked 500 miles. It was stunning. This, Albion is just so beautiful and such a sacred land. And yeah, I think one of the things I realized is we were the edge of the known world, and how we were like the Nepal and Tibet of the ancient world. We were this rocky outcrop, like, right over there. It was, you had to cross the sea to get to us. And just once you get to the borderlands and you get away from the built up areas, it's so full of stone circles and Neolithic tombs. And you're like, well, the whole country was like that. The whole country was just a network of temples and sacred sites. And it's just beautiful from beginning to end. And yeah, you can't help but fall more and more in love with it. So yeah, that's the Spine of Albion. So we walked up to Edinburgh, which we had as the throat chakra. And the throat chakra, it's so apt that it's Edinburgh because that's where all the storytelling is happening. And you've got all of this, voice happening in Edinburgh. And then Claire Cairn was the third eye chakra. And that's an amazing site that's got three circular mounds. Well, two are a mound and one is a ring that you go inside. So that was like the third eye. And then the crown chakra was Hope Bay up in the top. And that was absolutely stunningly beautiful. And the thing that was unbelievably crazy, again, this aspect of the land and nature getting involved, was that we were told on our way up to Scotland. So I had a really amazing support team, like an energy support team that were helping me online, who were just keeping in touch with me and just sending energy support to all of us as we were walking, which was so useful. And they realised as we were getting close to Scotland that we were just a bunch of marauding English people turning up in Scotland. So like, we need to ask permission to enter. So they'd done a ceremony where they'd asked permission for us to enter, and rainbows had really come into the vision. And then literally we saw rainbows non-stop after that ceremony. It was crazy. But also when we got up to Scotland ourselves, I had that in my head that we hadn't asked permission to get in, but we tried to get in, and it was a bit like trying to break into Glastonbury. Like, we couldn't get into Scotland. There was this really big motorway bridge that was just impossible, really, for us to walk along to get in. And we got to what was the bridge that we thought we were going to be able to cross, and it was completely fenced off. There was no way of getting across. So the next bridge was further along, but it was along a railway track, and we couldn't tell whether we were actually going to be able to get through this railway track. And so I went and had a wee under a hawthorn bush, and hawthorn had become my best friend and ally on the first pilgrimage because she's heart medicine. She supports and helps the blood capillaries in the body, and so lets the things that should pass through, but stops the things that shouldn't. And so, like the hawthorn in the bushes, the birds and the mice and the rabbits can get through, but the horses and the cows can't. And so that happens in your body, and she really is strengthening heart medicine. And in terms of my heartbreak from the marriage and all of the huge transition I was having to go through, I was eating the berries and holding this beautiful bit of twig that I always have on my altar now that she's stayed with me. And I just, looked up at her and I was like, oh, is it okay for us to enter? Sorry, I hadn't asked. And I just felt to say yes. And I knew that we could carry on to this bridge. So I just went back to the others and I was like, I know we'll be all right. If we go this way, we'll be okay. So we went through the railway track and it was a bit thickety, but we saw some hares, which was amazing. And then we got to the bridge, and it turned out to be the oldest bridge into Scotland. And we crossed the bridge, and there was this big sign saying "Welcome to Scotland." And then the next field had the most liberty caps in it you've ever seen in your life. So it was just like this fairy field. And then we got further up the hill, and this couple ran out of their house, and they were like, "Oh, we hoped you were going to come this way." And they invited us in, and they made us coffee and cake, and yeah, they knew that we were coming. And so yeah, we entered Scotland via the oldest bridge into Scotland, and went up to Edinburgh, and then went to Glasgow for the conference. Did our performances there. That was all amazing. But we wanted to finish the whole line. So we then got a people carrier and drove from Edinburgh up to Clairvaux and then up to Hope Bay. And when we got to Hope Bay, the land looked like a dragon going into the sea. So this land, the mountain range on the side just looked like a dragon going into the sea. There was a double rainbow as we were driving there, and it was floating over the bracken that was gold because it was autumn. So it was just mountains of gold with these rainbows hovering over them. And we drove through them like a tunnel, and we got to Hope Bay, and there was an old bothy and the dragon shape on the side. And then we did our closing ceremony, and I kid you not, we had 7 claps of thunder. So it was a clap for every ceremony we'd done. No lightning, no rain, just 7 claps of thunder. We were just like, well, we were witnesses. We that definitely happened. So it was just mega. I was like, okay, the land gets involved. Like she just joins in. So yeah, held the ceremonies up the route, and it was called Listening to the Land, Pilgrimage for Nature, and it was very powerful for us to really tune in. And what I learned is that everyone does it in their own way. So we all have our own relationship to the inner world. You know, when a child's playing with nature, there isn't a right or wrong way to do it. So I think that the way that we interact with the lines, you know, some people could feel the shape of the lines, some people couldn't feel anything, but really enjoy coming and doing the walk. Like everyone had different experiences. I've found personally that I can feel the lines in my body. So I don't use dowsing rods. I see what happens. I see where I'm kind of guided and where I walk to. And I've got my healing stick that Gordon Phil gave me, and Gordon and Geraldine, and Gordon Winter, and I find that I'll just put the staff down, and it turns out to be the node point, and I just feel like it's the right place to put the staff and to send my energy out into the land, and I'm always sending just goodwill and love out into the land as I walk. And so as we're walking, we're giving the land this acupuncture massage with our staffs, and so I feel like I'm a body dowser. And what I do afterwards is I'll look at the maps afterwards and see if where I walked is where the lines were. And 9 times out of 10, it will be. And when I'm not on them, I can feel it. It feels wrong. It starts feeling a bit more fearful and clunky, and things go wrong. So when you're on the lines and you're, doing this pilgrimage journey, it just feels in flow, like it feels like a river, and you start feeling like you're being carried by it, and it guides you along. So yeah, we created a performance en route, and I used a lot of my Tudor experience from this. So I've been working and living at a Tudor reenactment since I was 10 years old. And I started off working there just from visiting with the school, and I worked in the dairy, and it was just my parents and my school saw how much I was into it, and they were like, she obviously needs to go do this. And so I went, and it's called Kentwell Hall in Sudbury, Long Melford next to Sudbury, which near Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. And I just fell in love with the mummers players, the performers, and I dreamt of being a player. And by the time I got to 13, like the girl there in a cloak on the left hand side, there was this woman who had this cloak, and I just dreamed of being a player and being like her, this older lady called Penny. And then when I was 13, she'd left. I found the cloak. I got to have the cloak, and now I'm a player, and I've been doing that for 36 years now. And I still go. My brother met his partner there. My niece and nephew go. Like, we're on generation after generation of people growing up living as Tudors, and we do mummers plays. So we had the mummers play incorporated into the performance that we took to COP, and basically shared our experience of the land, used fooling and used mummers play as a way of performing our experience of the land. And instead of having a banner with a slogan written on it, we'd asked everyone we met what they wanted us to say to the delegates. So our banner was hundreds of voices from children and all these people that we met, of what they wanted us to say to the delegates about how we were treating the land. So yeah, I went to COP, did a lot of talks and things there, which was amazing. This is my mumming family from the reenactment. So we have grown up together. It's my brother on the right hand side. I'm the one with the big nose. And yeah, we have a cart that we perform our plays on top of, and then we sleep underneath in the straw. And yeah, been doing that for 36 years. This is us. This is the hall in the background, and all these amazing. And the people there are so talented and wise, and yeah, like I heard on the radio the other day that there's only 4 people left in the UK who know how to nap flint, as in making axe heads or like spearheads, napping. And I was like, I know all 4 of them. They work there. And apparently, napping is older than being Homo sapien. So we were napping before we became human, and so it's the oldest profession there is, and there's only 4 people left in the UK who do it, and they all work at Kentwell Hall. So it's just full of incredible people that are doing glass blowing and archery and pottery and all of these amazing things. So off the back of the COP pilgrimage, there was 7 of us that were like, I really love doing the Mummers Play. Let's become travelling performers and walk across the country being travelling mummers. So we did, and we did the pilgrimage for unity, and we walked from Dragon Hill back down the Michael and Mary line to Cairnle Bowl. So it was a bit of a shorter one because we had less time. So we walked that, performing George and the Dragon, which is the traditional mummers play that we perform at Kentwell Hall. And that felt relevant because of the connection between St Michael and St George. And the feeling that St Michael's the higher version and St George is the lower version. So we're all, and this is how fooling works. You have the inner and outer, and the outer is us putting on our, best face and our little puppet that we're sticking out, pretending to be amazing in this knight in shining armor. And then St Michael is the higher version, which is the bit that's infinite, that connects all of us, where we're all connected to each other. And when you look at the images of George and Michael, St George is slaying the dragon, which I see is our nature, our animal, inner world, part of ourselves, that is the bit that, dogs and cats aren't worried about being dogs and cats. They don't have a puppet that they're putting out as like, oh, here's my polished version of myself. They're just getting on with being dogs and cats. We added on consciousness, which was an amazing gift. But when we did that, we then, and we became this split entity where the consciousness is trying to convince you it's you, when really you're this other thing that could live without consciousness, but it doesn't want you to know that. So George is the consciousness bit, and St Michael is the infinite bit, that's the more animalistic bit, and the bit that connects to the land. So we were called the Strolling Mummers, and we performed our play up on Dragon Hill, which was brilliant because it's George and the Dragon. So felt very connected to the Michael and Mary line doing George and the Dragon. And then the next year we walked the Spine of Albion from Edinburgh, from Arthur Seat down to Isle of Wight. And this time we wrote our own mummers play, which is quite revolutionary in the mumming world. So we wrote a play, King Arthur's Awakening, a rousing tale. There was lots of knob gags and innuendo in it. And it was based on in where is it? Nim nim nim. Just outside of Manchester, forgotten the name of it, but it will come to me. There's a cave, and it's believed that there's a bunch of knights in the cave, and that when the land is in need, they will rise and they will come out and save us. And there was loads of King Arthur stuff along that route. So there's 2 round tables. There's loads of Merlin related places. And so we kind of twisted the tale slightly and said that there was King Arthur was in the cave, and because the land was in need, he had arisen, and he was back out and was coming to save the land. And what was crazy is while we were doing that, I mean, it was all about sovereignty, and the play ended with us putting crowns, getting the audience to put crowns on their heads and like celebrating the sovereignty in all of us. And the thing that was crazy about that was that during that time, we ended up with 2 monarchs and 3 prime ministers. So while we were walking and performing that play, we're just like churning our way through leaders. So yeah, we're doing a rousing tale, and then this year it's pilgrimage for peace. So I had 1 year off, and it was awful, and I'm never going to do that again. So I'm going to make sure I walk every autumn because I felt like I didn't see my mum for a year. Really, is what it felt like. And so this year we did a pilgrimage for peace, and we walked the whole of the Michael Mary line again from Kenilworth to Hopton on Sea. It's the first time I've done that since the first pilgrimage in 2020, and it was four of us, which was really intense. It was quite an intense having just four people and not seven. It was new people. Well, one of them had walked with me for all of the pilgrimages, but the other two were new. But also, we set off. We're doing George and the Dragon again, which we'd done before. But just as we set off, all the St George flags went up. So, like, we're walking into the country when there's just suddenly this like St George flag thing happening. We're wearing the St George cross on our costumes as we're performing, and the flotilla with Greta Thunberg was happening, and it just I was actually really scared before we set off. I had a moment, I had a night where I was like, I don't think I should go. I'm worried, I'm really worried. And I was like, no, this is living into fear. We need to live into love. We need to live into peace. And so did the walk, but it was hardcore. It was really hardcore. It definitely felt powerful. It felt important and good. Again, the message at the end of it is people are lovely, and we stayed with everyone. We stayed with people who describe themselves as far right. We stayed with every type of person, and they did all still look after us. They were still all kind. It was like, guys, you just all need to talk to each other because you'll actually all get on. And we're all just scared. Everyone's like nervous and scared of what's happening in the world around us. But actually, on a day-to-day basis, people are kind and incredible. And so, yeah, it felt like by the time I ended the pilgrimage, I have hope again. I feel completely inspired by humanity, and I know we're going to be okay. So, yeah, so that was that. I think that's the end of it. Oh, yeah, that was the George and the Dragon. Was what we were performing again because we are on the line, and we did the mum off in Shagford. So that was the mum off in Shagford was amazing because what has happened is where we walked the first time, um, and did our performance of George and the Dragon in Shagford, it inspired the town to create their own mummers troupe. So this time when we walked through, we had a mum off, and they did their mummers play of the Green Knight, Gawain and the Green Knight, and we did our mummers play of George and the Dragon, and we had a mum off in the church of St Michael in Shagford, which is on the Michael and Mary line. So that was really cool. So it's nice because there's starting to be a legacy and like relationships developing from doing these pilgrimages. And this line is what I'm going to walk next. So obviously not all in one go, but we're going to do the Athena Apollo lines, which just cuts through the bottom of Ireland, St Michael's Mount, Mont Saint Michel, which goes through the Channel Islands where I live, and then going down through France, Italy, and then it goes all the way to Armageddon down in Israel. So that feels like a really powerful route to walk with all that's going on in the world, and we're going to be doing it in chunks. So I'm going to do some sailing and 250 miles this autumn, and then break it down into chunks as we go along. So that's the plan next. And yeah, just to say, the thing that was interesting about walking these two different directions is the Michael and Mary line, like I said, was this very nurturing energy. Ellen and Belinus, who are on the Spine of Albion, completely different. Completely different. I thought that they were going to be similar. I didn't know. I went in with an open mind. My experience of them is that Ellen is the wounded feminine and was like trying to ride a dragon. Like the first time we walked up, she was absolutely furious, and it's marked at the root chakra in the Isle of Wight with a statue to Artemis, which is pretty much the Greek version of Ellen, who's the Celtic goddess, so a horned goddess. There's a statue of Artemis because a girl was drawn to this glade, which is on the Ellen line, and was murdered and raped and murdered on the Ellen line. And she was drawn there with her sketchbook and was drawing this goddess Artemis in her sketchbook. So the line was, I mean, it feels so, yeah, it's horrifying. And then there's this beautiful statue of Artemis on the Ellen line in this glade, and that's the root chakra of our land, So it's got this mad energy running up it. And then Belinus had this Arthurian feel where it felt very much like the sun, because it is Belinus as the sun god, of just holding space for this woman who's just like in a frenzy and in a madness. I'm happy to say that we walked up, and then when we walked back down it the next time, it felt extremely better. It felt much healed. And something that's really interesting is Boomtown, which is this very creative festival, is in part of the same land temple complex as St Catherine's Hill in Winchester, which is right on the Spine of Albion. And this land temple, Jonathan Kay, who's one of the wisdom keepers, who was my fooling teacher, used to spent a long time living in Winchester and knew a lot about this land temple that was, part of the Downs. And this basin where Boomtown happens looks like a vulva with a womb, and it's incredibly creative, and they are teaching young people very profound lessons. Like it's an enlightened group of people teaching enlightenment in this space, and part of their storyline, they have a narrative that's running through it. So you can go and just party, or you can take part in a game like a LARP, a live action role play game that's going on. And their game has this AI character who was running the city, who put the city into lockdown before the lockdown happened in the real world. So they freaked out because they felt like they were starting to make reality do weird things. So they created the lockdown. Lockdown had happened in Boomtown a year before it happened in the real world. And the AI had shut itself down. And the reason she shut herself down was because she'd downloaded all of the personalities of the festival goers as a way of trying to control them more. But in doing so, had accidentally downloaded the girl that she was based on, who was the daughter of the inventor of her. And she'd met her own humanity, and so had shut herself down. And half of the city were pro this daughter and the other half were against her, and it ended up being the head and the heart. So it was the head and the heart being against each other, and the girl's name, the daughter's name, was Ellen. And so there you are, like basically on the Ellen line, or like part of the land temple that the Ellen line's on, where there's all these posters and everything going, where's Ellen, have you seen Ellen? Like, and it was mad. So, and one of the things that I heard repeatedly there was meeting these women that had really horrific things happen to them and horrific experiences, who through creativity and through connecting to the land had healed, and were there at this festival going, oh no, I've really healed, like so much has changed, and I feel connected to the goddess and the divine feminine. And yeah, so it does feel like some powerful healing work is happening along that line. But yeah, gifts and challenges. Every time I walk, more gifts come. It's not that I expect them at all either. You just don't know, but the challenges are real. And yeah, I get physically injured, emotionally challenged. It does take me the whole winter to get over it. I'm in the process of it now. I'm still, crying earlier today. Like the emotions are thick and very challenging. But, amazing things happen. I got back this year and it turns out that we're going to be able to build a hobbit house, which has been a dream that I've always dreamt of doing. That just happened this year, completely unexpectedly. So, yeah, it seems like things happen afterwards, but not to expect it. But yes, one of the things was ending up in this beautiful island of Sark, meeting the most gorgeous partner in the world, who's my husband, that was our wedding day. He's dressed as a wizard with Crocs. But yeah, Sark's stunning, and I just living in this fairy tale existence. Yeah. Living this fairy tale existence. And then this was just the archetypes of the pilgrim for me, the hermit and the fool. So the hermit is the walking confessional. That little spark is the little divine spark that created you when the egg and the sperm hit. And it's the bit that connects to nature. It's the bit that connects to everyone else. And so when you're doing the work of the hermit, when you're pilgrimaging, it's you and your little spark connecting with the land again. And yeah, this childlike, innocent beauty and that you see in each other, and it brings it out in the people you meet, which is really wonderful. And then the fool, everything is the fool's favorite thing. So some days you're sleeping in a ditch and other days you're sleeping in a four-poster bed in a castle. And that both those things have happened. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen, and whatever it is, it's all part of the journey, and you're going to love every second of it, and it's part of the adventure. And I think that's it. So the last thing I just wanted to say was uh if anyone wants to connect with me or anything, or any of the stuff that I do a podcast called The Nonsense in the Chaos, which I do weekly. I'm having a break now till March, but I do it, I'll start again in March, because I'm writing a book. I'm writing about the COP pilgrimage currently, so writing my second pilgrimage book. Like I say, trying to get the first one published. But yeah, Nonsense in the Chaos podcast, and then I also do moon ceremonies online every full moon and dark moon, which I just share the link for on my social media, which I guess we can share. It's Kriya Arts, Kriya, Kriya Arts on Instagram and Facebook, and it's free. So you just click the link and come to the moon ceremonies. And yeah, so that's it. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my gosh, you've taken us all on a journey. What a delight. And how gorgeous your storytelling. Honestly, if you have a moment, I know you probably need some integration time because you've just shared so much with us. But honestly, some of the comments in this are just incredible. Your storytelling. We've had people celebrating the carry on and I mean, Paul, Cow Whisperer Paul, you were saying the cat bombed licking its bits. It's just brilliant.
Good. Good. Well done. Love them.
but 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 also as well as that cheery, creative, fun, illuminating the fool's journey, right? In a way, it's also what you've shared is deeply profound and mystical and that deep connection with nature. I'm just in awe of your journeys. It's not just a pilgrimage, it's multiple pilgrimages and the shifts that you've experienced. And I could go on and on, but I want to ask our lovely friends, Earth Energy friends, if they'd like to raise hands and ask any questions following this amazing talk. Thank you, Jodie.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I just wanted lovely talk. Brilliant.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that. And you do strike me as a bit of a carry-on character, so brilliant. Keep it up. I just wondered, have you ever thought about doing a walk across South Wales from just a short one, from what you've done before, from Tintern Abbey to St David's?
I mean, yeah, I'd love to do them all. I think the thing that I like about doing 8 weeks of walking is that you go through a sweet spot where you completely we call it Kairos time. So Chronos
Yeah.
time is chronological time. Yeah, Kairos is perfect timing. And you get lost. And this is kind of what you're trying to do in fooling or anything really where you're performing, where you're in the moment. Because
Yeah.
the infinity sign is the has the sphincter in it. I was talking with Alex about before on the call started, the torus shape. So you've got the outer world's infinite, the inner world's infinite, and the sphincter is your ego, which is what you're experiencing everything through. Is this like sphincter? And when that's untwisted, it becomes a zero, and that's the Fool, the top of the tarot. What have you got there? Let's see. You keep disappearing into Aurora. Oh wow, yeah, exactly. With the spirals, which is also what Alex was talking about. Um, and that when the inner and outer are one, that's when you're like a child at play, where you're in your inner world but in the outer world. And that happens. You go through this sweet spot after about 2 weeks. Actually, probably about 3 weeks, probably 2 or 3 weeks. You then disappear into this liminal space because the last week, when you're aware that you're coming out of it, you kind of start slipping out of it. And so you get like a chunk of time where you're just completely lost. And so I absolutely love any walk I can do, I will do it. But it's the duration of the walks that means that you really get lost in this space. This year, like because we're up on the Ridgeway, I mean, you literally don't know where you are because unless you drop down into a village or town, you're kind of on this continued landscape for ages, for about 2 weeks. And so yeah, when we were on that bit, we literally didn't know where we were, but we were just with the ancestors and
One other quick question. On when you're on a pilgrim route, when you're on a pilgrim route, do you find any difference in the energy, male and female bands going back and forth to different travels?
yeah, yeah, no, massively. Yeah, I mean, it, like I said, the Mary one was the first one that I tuned into. So I could feel this tinkling. It's the only word I can really use for it. I was just like, everything seems a bit sparkly and tinkly, and I just felt nice. And then it was when I was at Glastonbury and I felt this other energy, and I felt the fast, furious kind of energy. I was like, oh, that's totally different. That is a different energy. So then I felt the difference between the Michael and Mary, and I wouldn't say it's constant, and there are places where it's stronger and weaker, but it's just moments where you're suddenly like, oh, that was a lovely afternoon with a lot of synchronicity and everything was really beautiful, and you're like, oh, I was on the Mary line all day. Oh, that makes sense. And then the Michael line, I pick up on it less, but what I notice is when I'm not on it, I'm more fearful. So when I'm on it, I feel braver as a woman walking on my own, or whatever. I just feel more protected. And then when I'm not on it, I'm like, oh, I can tell I'm not on it anymore, because I suddenly
So
start feeling a bit nervous.
it's nice and gentle, and it's yeah.
There's like you'll descend into a village and you'll meet some woman who looks like a goddess, and she'll have a Leo tattooed on her arm, and then you go to the cathedral and there's a guy painting the cathedral and he's beautiful, and he starts talking to you about how he's painted Michael and Mary as iconostasis for the altar, and it turns out his name's Leo. And it's just things like that, like the synchronicities just keep weaving into each other. And then the pub's called the George and the Dragon, and it's just like, and you just get used to it, like it literally just is non-stop. So you kind of start taking it for granted, which you never want to do, but it is just like, oh yeah, and then that happened, and then that was magic, and then that was magic. And so that's like the main way I pick up on it, is just the kind of continued synchronicities that happen. But there's definitely a different feel to the Michael and Mary line and the Ellen and Belinus lines. They're very different feeling lines. So that surprised me, because I was just open. I wasn't expecting either way. I was like, I'm interested to see what the difference is. So I'm interested to see what the Apollo Athena lines feel like as well, and how they might be.
Ju- Sort of hogging the time. Just thinking about, as you're on the Michael and Mary line. I don't know if you've ever read Hamish Miller and
Mm-hmm.
the book. Yeah, I can't recall the place that he came to where it was really dark and he doesn't want to go in there at all. Did you ever come across anything like that on the route?
No,
Really dark and
yeah, I've not, but Brent Tor is somewhere that people have had dark experiences. Um, and it's interesting because the legend of it is that the devil kept knocking down the building of the Tor. And oh, Lidford Gorge, someone's just said. But yeah, I've had some people saying that they found Brent Tor really dark, but
oh.
I've really loved it. Both times I've been there, I've felt very safe, although outside has felt kind of scary. Both times it's been like as if there is this kind of ferocious energy, and then you get inside and you're in a safe space. But yeah, the story is the devil kept knocking it down as it was being built, and then Michael came and got rid of the devil, and then they named the church after him in honor of him. um but yeah, I haven't, no, I've never had a negative feeling. I've definitely had moments where I felt um like not just not to be so nosy in a particular place, or like in a church or something. Like I've just, it's like, you're well, I've come and observed, but I'm not going to kind of interfere or mess around or do a play here, or because we'll do a play as well. Sometimes we just do the plays to the land as an offering, and that just goes on feeling. So sometimes we feel like we're being asked to stay somewhere and do something, and other times it's like, yep, no, you've been, goodbye. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's just the first time I ever tried remote viewing. I found myself on somewhere, and
Mm.
there was a big metal there's a window and a big metal bolts all around it. Oh, I'm gonna have a look in there. And a big bloke with a moustache looked at me, gave me the V's, and pulled the window down, pulled the
Yeah.
blind down. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah, no,
thank you. That
thank
was a
you.
brilliant
Thank you.
talk.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
mean, also Scotland as well. Like, obviously, trying to get into Scotland without permission, until we asked permission, that was definitely saying a big no.
Callanish next year, you can come there.
Yeah, lovely.
Oh, this
Thank you,
year,
David.
sorry.
Some of my power's just gone, so you can see I'm a
Oh
bit faint.
yeah.
So David, if I do, oh, it's come back.
This is very
Sorry,
exciting.
um, John, you've got your hand raised. Thank you. If you want to ask a
Yeah,
question.
yeah. I wanted to ask Jolie, lovely talk by the way, but
Thank you.
your mumming or singing on the lines, what difference does that make?
I mean, it feels like it's what we're meant to be doing. So definitely voice, and it's vibration, isn't it? It's giving some energetic vibration to the line. It feels like it's singing back to you. Like, I'm not a particularly good singer, so I have a real struggle with my voice, and I think I have some past life. I think I got ducked in the witch trials, and because I've nearly drowned 6 times in this life, and then have this strong connection to the Tudors, and then to Matthew Hopkins, the witch find general. And I was born with asthma, and I have a real struggle with my voice. I wear lapis lazuli around my neck, and I really hate being in the government here in chief police. Being in authoritarian spaces like terrifies me. But when I'm on the lines and I'm in the zone, when we walked down the Spine of Albion and we got to the statue, this Artemis statue, we sang Savage Daughter to her, and my voice completely opened, and it opened in a way that is only ever done 3 times in my life. And we all cried our eyes out as we're doing it. And again, it just feels like there's this two-way relationship going on. It feels like we're giving to each other. So the performances, because the ceremonies were great, and we were doing the ceremonies with wisdom keepers, but I think there was something about falling into a kind of way of doing things that can become a bit evangelical in the way that we have done in the church. Like, things are always done in the same way with the same voice, and it's all very reverential. But we're fools. I'm a fool, and quite a lot of the pilgrims that walk with me are fools. And so quite early on, when we were doing stuff with the wisdom keepers, one of the fools would like come in and just be like, I mean, how do I do the voice of the wind? What is the voice of the wind? And just started fooling with it. And it was really funny because it just really messed up the like the sacred tone of what was going on. But it was also brilliant because it was, the inner dialogue of what a lot of people there were feeling like, what gives me the right to speak for the wind, and that kind of thing. And so we then really enjoyed being more playful with the way that we were kind of giving our worship. Our intention and our prayer was done through song and play and performing, in ways that are challenging us. It's not like we know what we're doing and we're really good at it. It's doing things that is improvised, or like me with the singing, things that put me out of my comfort zone. So I'm being challenged. And yeah, it just feels like there's a two-way relationship with what's happening in terms of giving to each other. But it feels like song and story and voice are really key elements of it. For me, that's what I feel. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
answer.
Thank you, John. And Alan and Joe, you've got a question.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Alan and Joe.
Hi, Jolie.
They're
How
two
you
of my
doing?
lovely friends from the walk.
Yeah, I still remember that. It's really interesting you sort of filling in all the gaps around, because we've seen you a few times, stayed here,
Yeah.
and all the other stories that you've related tonight. It was really interesting to see the background. Yeah, still remember that when was it 2020 when you
Yeah.
first came on your own, and you
Yeah.
seemed quite a sort of forlorn character, really. And hearing what you just said about what had happened, it's not surprising, really, So
Yeah, I'd literally, my husband had split up with me a day before I came to you. So
yes,
I
yeah,
hadn't said anything to anyone yet because it didn't seem like it was real.
yes,
But
yeah,
yeah, so I was
yeah.
holding all of
So
that when I came to you.
yeah,
Uh,
but what I wanted to say was the power of pilgrimage is amazing.
mm,
Having myself walked not in one go, like I think it's amazing the physicality of what you do, to walk
mm,
like you did in the autumn, like 500 miles in one go
yeah,
in all weathers. It's just that alone is just amazing, I think. But
mm,
I've walked in stages, pretty much all the way from Carnival to Glastonbury
hmm
with Richard Taylor, who wrote the Merry Michael Pilgrim's Way, which is obviously
mm,
referred to. Uh, and it is an amazing experience. It is just
mm,
fantastic. Your connection with nature and the experience of coming across the lines, as you do, and
mm,
visiting all these amazing sites that are all connected by the lines and the lay, and the Michael
mm,
lay. And it's just such an amazing experience.
yeah.
And
And you
as
live right on it.
yes, yeah, in Crediton, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, so I just wanted to say, all credit to you for what you do. I think it's
Thank you.
incredible.
Thank you. And thank you for looking after me. I really appreciate
Oh,
it.
you're
You
very
always have a
welcome.
good time at yours.
Yeah, it
It's
was
great.
welcome to come and stay again.
Yeah,
You
love
don't
to.
live on the Apollo Athena line, though.
No, but I'll definitely do the Michael and Mary again at some point. There's no way I'm keeping away from those lovely lines because they feel like friends, you know, and then there are the actual friends on them. So yeah, we'll definitely be back at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. I've got a question for you. With
Yeah.
the Apollo, because it's a really big thing, isn't it, to sort of say, I'm going to do a pilgrimage, however short or long it is. It's a journey, and it is that fool's journey. What's drawn you to the Apollo and Athena pilgrimage?
So one of the pilgrims that has walked with us, is Dennis White, who's an energy healer, and he said that he felt that I was meant to do it. That it was he just sort of planted the seed that I was meant to be doing it when we last did the Spine of Albion. In fact, so yeah, it was the last because we did got it tattooed on my arm, the Michael and Mary line and the um Spine of Albion, and then that's Dragon Hill in the middle there. And so I did like the George Cross kind of across the land, and it felt like a body of work. So I went there and back again in each direction. Then did a year out, but wasn't even thinking it was a year out. I was just like, I've done that now. I've done those 4 pilgrimages. And like I say, I just really I didn't like not walking. I was like, okay, I need to walk again. So I was looking at walking that line, but then I saw it was 4,500 miles, and I hadn't kind of got my head around the possibility of not doing it all in one go. So I was like, oh, that would be like, most of a year. I'd only just got married. I was like, yeah, I don't think he'll be up for that. So I was like, oh no. And so I'd kind of put it out of my mind, and then was drawn to doing the Michael and Mary line again because it's such a healing line. Like I find for me, it's interesting because in the like Wicca and witchcraft and Druid traditions, you have north south, so north's the earth and south's fire, and then east is air and west is water. And so I find it interesting that the Michael and Mary line, which is on the water and air axis, it feels like it is the head and the heart. It's this healing, like it's for you, kind of healing, balancing the head and the heart, the inner world, the outer world. It feels like this really healing walk. Then the north south is earth and fire. Feels like it's like, and now what you're going to do in the world? What are you going to do about it? And the fact we walked a cop, it was just like, what are you putting out in the world? Where's your passion and your drive to physically make something happen? So it just feels a much harder energy walking that north south walk, even though they're the same length. They seem like they're not, but from Edinburgh to the Isle of Wight, it's also 500 miles. It's like 530 miles both directions. So I just wanted to go see Michael and Mary again. Basically, I missed them. So I was just like, I'm going to go that line again. It was much tougher this time. And I think that's because the intention was a big one. So I have to kind of be quite careful about what the intention is. Doesn't mean not to challenge myself, but pilgrimage for repair and pilgrimage for unity were a lot easier and more gentle than listening to the land, pilgrimage for nature, pilgrimage for grief, and pilgrimage for peace. And so yeah, I'm still gonna not, I'm not a fearless person. So I mean, I am a fearless person, so I'm not scared to take that on, but I'm not sure yet what the intention is. I let that come to me. It sort of feels like it is still pilgrimage for peace because we're walking towards Israel. So it has, we're going to Armageddon. But maybe it's like pilgrimage for future or something like that. It's something about us having a future and having hope, pilgrimage for hope. It's that kind of feeling. But yeah, I kind of just came away this time feeling like, okay, I feel brave enough to go to foreign lands and do it because it is going to be completely different. It's a different kettle of fish. They haven't got footpaths. Each country is going to be different. So it's just, and then sort of the acceptance of doing it in bite-sized chunks. I think that's been when I sort of realized I could do that. I was like, okay, that makes it easier as well. I'm only going to do 250 miles this time because there's going to be the sailing bit at the beginning. So we're going to sail from Ireland, do St Michael's Mount, Mont Saint Michel, and then walk 250 miles to the center of France. And then the next time we'll do France to Italy, end of Italy. So yeah, bite-sized chunks.
Wow.
And yeah, that will take, it'll be like 4 or 5 years. So I also might intersperse it with doing Spine of Albion and Michael and Mary again. So I'll just sort of see as we go along how that pans out.
Mm.
Yeah.
That'll be, yeah, that'll be epic. I was wondering because it looks like you mentioned it goes through the Channel Islands. Have you been to any of those centers
Well, so
in
it
and around?
runs actually between them.
Okay.
But Sark, I mean, Sark's so sacred, and there's Neolithic sites all over Guernsey and Sark. I don't know Alderney dolmens, whether they, I assume they would do, but it was a concentration camp, so they might have been cleared as well. So I'm not sure what the uh, what's on Alderney, but yeah, Guernsey and Sark are covered in dolmens, and so there was, again, it's these like rocky outcrops were often sacred sites because it was just that away from, you know, the kind of marauding craziness that was going on the mainland. But it's, I mean, Sark is unbelievable. Like it's got a lot of quartz in the geology of it, and when you move over here it takes about like 6 weeks to be able to sleep because it's kind of just so zingy. And then once you get used to it, you sleep deeper than you've ever slept, and it's silent except for the wind. But yeah, there's no noise at all. But it's an extraordinary place, and it feels very sacred. So the lines running through it between St Michael's Mount and Mont Saint Michel. So I expect it's probably quite wide and quite pokey between those two locations. So yeah.
Wow.
Ah, will I be walking towards the midwinter solstice point? New beginnings. What do you mean by that, Stuart? You're going to come on. Stuart, what did you mean by that? Is there
Hi
a
there.
timing?
Yeah,
Hiya.
yes, you'll be walking towards by going in that direction. If you're going to be walking towards Armageddon,
Yeah,
which of course has its own mythologies of its great power, you're walking towards the same alignment of the
midwinter.
midwinter sunrise, the solstice.
Amazing.
So
So,
that's why I say new beginnings.
yeah,
So you're
new
going
beginning.
when you
Yeah,
do get there, it's going to be bang. You're going to be into something else that's going to be incredibly new as well.
that's amazing. You know, my morning practice today, I was pick a word in my morning practice, and it was new. So that's
Uh,
apt.
right.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was my little
Um,
contribution. It's going to
that,
be a very exciting experience, that one, in so
yeah,
many ways. I'm going to be fascinated to hear all about it as you progress with it, because
yeah.
the characters of those two lines are again very different,
Mm,
different indeed, and they have their own personality. I won't give any clues to what I've picked up in Cornwall of
yeah,
them. You will find them different yet again. So,
yeah.
power to you for that one.
I'm really excited, and I do love that. I love because I always do that as well with anyone who joins me on the pilgrimages. I don't tell them anything about what I feel about the characters because I'm just like, you know, you meet them and you have your experience because everyone's is valid. You know, it's like I was saying, every child plays with their inner world and with nature in their own way, and so it's their own relationship. So nothing. If anyone's like, oh, I find Mary actually quite aggressive, it's like, well, fine. If that's your experience, then I completely respect that. It's everyone's different. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting Athena and Apollo. And it's interesting that it's midwinter because I always walk in autumn, but we could, you know, we could walk because it's getting hotter as we get down there. We could walk into midwinter at one point, which would be nice. Um, yeah, so that's very exciting. Thank you for letting me know that.
Thank
Nice
you.
one.
And Ian, you've put a question in the chat about your daughter traveling solo in South America
Oh
on her
wow.
own pilgrimage. Any advice?
Ooh. Gosh.
It it was to do with the mindset really than prepare, the right boots and the right clothing. Just
Yeah.
the kind of, what kind of
Mindset.
mindset should she set herself? Because you obviously walking for peace pilgrimage for
Yeah.
which is fantastic, but I just wondered whether she should maybe have some kind of mindset that would keep her going. She's out there. She's going to be out for like 8 months, possibly a year.
Wow.
And she's going solo. Friend let her down, so she's saying, "Well, I'm
She's
still
just got to
going."
go do it. I mean, I'd say that's the mindset. It's like to just do it. And it is trusting the universe and then 100% trusting your instincts.
Yeah,
And, you know, like the world is the way it is. Not all is necessarily going to go well. You know, we can't know these things. But it is, I find on the whole that, well, in fact, I have found 100% that you, by being vulnerable, people look after you. Like, they can see that you're vulnerable and people just do take care of you. And that is true 99% of the time. That 1% when it isn't is not great, and can be really bad. But I have personally, so far, it's been 100%. And I think for a woman especially, you just have to, like, be, do you know what? I'm just going to do it. And I'm just going to, you know, whatever happens is whatever happens. You just got to be brave and go, I'm not going to let anything stop me from going for it, and trusting the universe. It's trusting the universe, and then also having a little pinch of, like, and also I can't control what happens. Like, you know, you've just got to be brave and go for it. Yeah.
Well, she's lived in London for a few years, so she's a bit streetwise.
Yeah, no, totally. And yeah, people are extraordinary. People are extraordinary. It's just, but it's just trusting your instincts. If anything feels not like something's wrong, then just, yeah, trust your instinct, trust your gut. But people are unbelievable, you know, and they take care of you in such extraordinary ways. So, yeah, she's gonna have an adventure.
Thank you, Jolie, and excellent talk, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good on your daughter. That's brilliant.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, good luck to your daughter. Melanie, you put in the chat about song lines, and that's really interesting. And at Tamar Dowsers, we got Andy Norfolk talking about song lines in a few. Is there any resonance with you, Jolie, with that?
So yeah, if I've never had a past life regression thingy, but I feel that my past lives have a connection to the Aborigine culture as well. The fooling and the world of the fooling is very, very similar to the dreaming. So it's this collective consciousness soup that we're working with. And so as the fool, you're learning to use that as your painting palette. And when you talk, so I've spent some time in Australia, and Jonathan Kay as well has had a lot of interaction with Aborigine leaders who have talked about the dreaming with him. And so the way that I feel about, because I mean, the Michael line, this was one of the things that Stuart shared with me, went all the way round into Australia. And in terms of the crazy synchronicities, that in 2020, just before the lockdown happened, I was sort of forced to go to Australia with a theatre show, as in that I didn't want to go there, because when I'd been there before, I'd felt really bad anxiety. I didn't enjoy being in Australia at all. I'd left home at 18 and just gone to Australia. I was like, I need to get there. That's where I need to go to. So I felt really drawn to the place. And then I got there and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So I'd had no desire to go back there. And then in 2020, for some reason, the universe decided I was going back there, and I did everything I could to fight against it. And then they ended up, like, paying us stupid amounts of money because I kept saying no. They were like throwing money at us to make us take this theatre show over to the Adelaide Fringe Festival. And I was like, oh, all right, okay, we've got to go. But as we were going, the forest fires were happening. And I was like, we can't, I mean, how do you justify flying across the world with a theatre show to I know, although I thought it was Neighbours and Home and Away because I loved it growing up. So I wanted to go and be a painter and decorator like Charlene. So yeah, went over there and the forest fires were happening. And so I got in touch with a charity on Facebook that were helping, like, replant gardens where the forest fires had hit. So it was like ground force coming in and helping out. So I was like, okay, if we're going to go over as a theatre company and do this show, we'll go and also spend some time replanting some gardens over there. So we went and did it. And because of that, I put my hands in the soil, which I would never have done before. And as soon as I put my hands in the soil, that's when I was like, hang on a minute. I do know this land and I love this land and I do have a connection to this land, but it's not in this lifetime. In this lifetime, I'm part of the colonial, you know, horrors of everything. I'm, you know, but I definitely feel like I have some past life connection to this. And then through the people that we did the garden with, which was mad because the whole landscape was black. As far as you could see, it was just soot. And then we just came in and dug it all up and then planted a garden. And it was just this little oasis garden in around this house, just surrounded by this blackness. And we met these lovely people who ran the charity, and they told me about the rainbow serpent. and how the rainbow was the serpent going from one watering hole to another, and that the Aborigines would all like freeze so that it didn't come and get them. And I just love the idea of a rainbow being scary. It's like, oh no, it's a rainbow. Oh shit, I freeze. So I found that amazing. And so I'd heard about the rainbow serpent. And then in Adelaide at the Fringe Festival, there was an Aborigine art centre, and their programme was incredible. And what was mind blowing was the first time, it was the Adelaide's 50th anniversary, and it was the longest running Fringe festival in the world, and it was the first time there'd been an Aborigine program in it. And I was just like, I come from Brighton, where like we'll do anything to get, you know, White Hawk, the local council estate, or anyone to be involved in anything. It's like we're always trying to facilitate that happening. Just the thought that you could like just not invite an Aborigine art centre that was the oldest Aborigine art centre as well, been there for like 15 years, to not participate. It was just like, what? That's mad. But they did this incredible light show that was all about the rainbow serpent, and it was this beautiful, absolutely beautiful installation with them telling the story, and then it had the star constellation on the ceiling, and absolutely amazing. So when I came back, I knew about this, which I wouldn't have known if I hadn't gone, and then met Stuart, and he was like, oh yeah, the Michael line goes all the way around and becomes the rainbow serpent line. I was like, I know about the rainbow serpent line. So that was really interesting. And yeah, I definitely feel that when I'm walking, it has this same sort of walkabout feeling to it. And one time the line said to me, you get a better signal. So when you're on the lines, it's a better signal for communicating with the earth. And that was sort of like, you know, what it's shared with me at one point, is while you're walking the lines, it's easier to communicate with the earth and with the land. So yeah, and that's what I missed when I had the year off going. I was like, no, I need to go commune with my friend Mother Nature, the land, through the different characters. So it's like it's always Mother Earth and the land and Albion. So it's like different flavors within different flavors. So the lines have the flavor, but the land has a flavor. So I'm interested to walk through different lands and experience their different flavors as well as the different lines. Yeah, just what an extraordinary place we are blessed to live, you know. It's incredible.
Amazing. Thank you. And just before we opened up the Zoom, we were talking about your journey that you're planning in France, and there aren't these public sort of, you know, ramblers kind of, or, you
Footpaths,
know,
yeah.
footpaths. So if anyone knows of how to navigate that in France or any of these other countries along the Apollo Athena line, please let us know at the Earth Energy group email, and we'll send it on to you if there's any sort of hands-on experience, because this is a, you know, well-traveled bunch of people. Talking, I think, Jane, you're well-traveled to Ireland, aren't you? And you put a message in about the Gypsy Switch. Thank you very much for sharing that. You've got the book there. As the
Wonderful.
Gypsy Switch is a wonderful story about ritual journeys performed by Jill Smith in the
Wonderful.
1980s. And she
write that
becomes
down.
part of the sacred landscape, performing at the sacred sites that are part of the circle around Albion, with the
Okay.
centre being Arbor Low. And she follows the signs of the zodiac. Great book to read. So thank you, Jane, for sharing that.
Thank
We can
you.
see some of the, oh yes, that centre one.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Look, I've written that down. Thank you. What was her
Oh.
name? What was the author's name?
Was it Jill Smith?
Jill
Sorry,
Smith.
Jane,
Brilliant.
you're on mute.
No, that's
Jill,
right. Jill
is
Smith.
that Jill?
I'll write that down.
Sorry,
Oh no, is that the author? No, that's the creator, isn't it, Jane? Sorry.
Jill is the lady, and she's just given birth to a baby, and she walks.
Oh,
She
wow.
the whole of this circle around Arbor Low, but she follows the signs of the zodiac, so she has to be in different sacred places on that particular date for the zodiac.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Wow.
She goes with a horse, and
I think I've met her. I think I've met her on my travels.
well done, because she's part of the performing arts. And do you know, I put it out to read on holiday, but I was so busy and I wanted to read it again, because I read this back in 2021. She brought it out. So yeah,
I'm going to read that.
and
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I met her on my first pilgrimage.
yeah, so
Excellent.
really quite a fabulous book to read. Oh, it's whole story. It's a bit like you. She just spills her whole heart out, and she Besides all the rituals and the sacred places, I look forward
Amazing.
to your book when you publish it.
Yeah. I just need to get it out. I need to get it out there, but it's all ready to go. And yeah, got some lovely illustrations and stuff for it and everything. So yeah, it's ready to go. So if you know anyone, point them in my direction.
Funny, a bit of synchronicity. I'm meeting with somebody next Friday about book publishing.
Oh, cool. Well, there you go.
As in, not my book.
Put in a good word
I
for
haven't
me.
written one, but yes, I will mention
Yeah, that'd be
your
amazing.
question. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And Paul, Mr. Cow Whisperer, are you ready to roll with your drum roll question? Come on.
Well, okay, hopefully I've got this right. First of all, I've got to ask what the name of your cat is.
My cat, Solstice and Equinox. We've got two.
You've got two.
Yeah, Solstice is completely black. So he's winter solstice, and then the half and half tabby is Equinox. So it's
Looking
Noxie and solar
right
Noxie.
over.
Yeah, he's like talking about me.
Okay, so we're looking at the equinox then.
Yes.
Okay, that's just for the notes for the meeting as we go forward. But at a very early stage, you said that you'd done some sort of tarot card reading. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do this.
Excellent.
And as you were talking originally, I thought, let me see if I can draw a few cards for this lady while she's talking. And while you were talking, I was thinking to myself, what questions do I ask for this woman? Because she seems to be all over the place. But she's not really. She's not. This is just a show. And so as I was thinking what questions to ask, a card popped out of my hand and was almost dropped. And this is the card, which hopefully you can see. Okay. And the words at the bottom, I'm going to have to take it away so I can read. It says, in the hand, the universe is your partner. Now, there's a number of synchronicities there in terms of what you've been saying all the way through. And I saw this card and your hands were waving around on the screen all over the place. And I thought, how appropriate. And there's a heart shape just up there in the palm of your hand. So that's the card that jumped out of my hand, and it doesn't happen very often. But this is what the reading says. Something amazing happens when you contemplate your intimate relationship with your higher power. How do you engage it? Perhaps you might have seen things through the influence of your religious or previous lives, I'm going to add, background, or you may have been exposed to other ways of making that connection real for you. It doesn't matter the source of your understanding. What matters is what works for you. For example, if you believe in a punitive God, you will be afraid of punishment for your transgressions. If you believe in a version of the higher power that blesses you, you may find it easier to surrender to a relationship of radical trust. This is the bit that I thought was good, because you've just finished your walks for this year. Right now, if you imagine relaxing, curled up in the hands of the divine, how does that make you feel? Can you then turn over your needs and desires to that divine power and trust that you're safe and secure and don't have to do anything at all to feel that way? Grace is activated in your life right now. You're in good hands. Your work, family, relationships, home, everything. You've done all that you can, so now's the time to rest and recharge instead of producing, doing, acting, strategizing. A hot tea, a good book, and a soft blanket are in order. I thought that was quite appropriate, but there was one other card which I was given that I really didn't get. And so I'm going to try to show it to you now. And this card is called the Eye of the Needle. I've never pulled this one before. But when I pulled it, I saw a hagstone. Do you know what hagstones are? You know that when you look through a hagstone, your view is focused, you see the future, you get insights that you've never seen before. But the Eye of the Needle If you look through the eye of a needle, what do you see? Summon the experience of being so singularly focused on the task ahead that it becomes natural to remove everything else that is superfluous, every distraction, every non-essential, so that you succeed. What is, in this case, the definition of success? In order for the threading of the needle to happen, everything not in alignment with your goal needs to go. Do you remember me saying this woman is all over the place? This is what card I pulled when that's what I was thinking. This is the only way you'll get what you need. Shrewd discernment, the willingness to winnow down the needle thread connection to its very essence. The eye of the needle looks so tiny, but once your intention, that's a word you've used several times tonight, threads through it, a vast opportunity is presented on the other side. The needle can mend, can sew things together to make something meaningful and new. You're experiencing success right now. Stay true to your desires, to the work you need to accomplish, so you are laser focused on the experience of creating and manifesting, another word you've used lots of times tonight. The outcome is assured by divine forces. So I do hope that you've got lots of bits of string left over in your bag that you can thread through the eye of the needle. But what a wonderful little talk that you've just given here tonight, because there is a spiritual relationship that you get with energy lines, and you've certainly got it. And it's always interesting when people are open enough to explain their emotions and the connections that they get when they walk around and they walk with the spirits of the land. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's all I've really got to say.
Thank
But
you.
it's
They're
all,
perfect.
it's
Yeah.
all in the hand. You've got it in the hand. Just keep waving them about.
Yeah. Jazz hands. Yeah, thank you. They're absolutely spot on, apt, and yeah, I'm literally was saying to my husband just before we came on the call, was like, I need to keep remembering to trust the universe and to trust that that everything's happening as it should. And yeah, it's easy to spring into the new year, especially just being like, what am I meant to be doing? And so that has been happening a lot. And I keep saying to everyone else that I support, don't do anything right now. This is a time for us to hibernate. This is a time for us to be still. And yet I'm there going, oh, I need to do things. So yeah, I take all of that on board and really appreciate it. They're perfect. Thank you.
Keep on doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was lovely.
And thank you again. Sorry, my dad is phoning. He knows I'm on this
send my love
call.
to him.
I
Send my
know.
love to him.
I've got do not disturb on, but it kind of bypasses because it's dad.
Because it's dad.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you again for such a beautiful storytelling and sharing and connection that, you know, you've brought such inspiration for our own personal experiences of how we connect with this beautiful land and the energies that we feel or find. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a lovely joy to meet all of you. And I've just, yeah, you're such an amazing community and have been so kind and supportive and friends. So yeah, I look forward to getting to know you all better at some point, and hopefully our paths will cross. So thank you. Take care.
Lovely. I'm just going to close off with the kindly luminous beings, guardians of this Zoom space. We leave in love and peace and give thanks for your blessings, protection, love and hospitality for ourselves, the technology and the communications while we're in this Zoom space. And so let it be. Thank you. I think Solstice came and joined in for that one.
Oh, that's not Equinox.
Oh, Equinox,
Hello,
sorry.
Equinox. Oh, yeah.
How perfect is that?
funny thing. Excellent.
Lovely to see everyone, and take good care. And see